Hello there fellow acolytes of the Sega Saturn, and welcome to part 2 of my top stages list for Mega Man Rockman 8. Last time we looked at stages 14 to 18, and this time we're going to look at the top 7. If you haven't watched the last video, I would recommend checking that out first, just so you can see what my bottom 7 picks are. But let's get cracking and get straight on to number 7. Coming at number 7 is the Tangle Mountain stage. Now, Tangle Mountain stage is quite interesting because there are constant gusts of wind that blow through the level. So while you're outside, the platforming sections are affected. You can actually jump further than you would think that you could. However, it does mean that if you overcompensate, you will go too far and you might not land on a platform. So it kind of expects you to relearn your platforming skill in order to make it across the platforming sections. Now, the platforming sections aren't particularly difficult, but with the added wind mechanics, it does throw something into the mix to make it more difficult for you. In between, you also have these indoor sections as well, where you get inside a bubble and you have to navigate a small maze of spike balls. They're not very difficult, but it's an interesting gimmick. It sort of reminds me of the bubble mechanic in the likes of the 8-bit version of Sonic 2. So it's not something particularly innovative, however it's something that is still quite enjoyable. Now, the level also contains a shoot 'em up section, just like in Wily Tower 2, which I mentioned in the last video. This is something that I thought I would dislike more than I actually do, and honestly, it's quite fun. It's not bullet hell, so it is not stressful in any way. It's just like a fun little romp through the skies on the back of your dog while you're shooting loads of stuff down. At the end, there's a sub-boss where you have to take down this mini cannon. It's not particularly difficult, but it's something that's kind of neat and a little bit different. The boss of the stage, Tangle Mountain, is quite interesting as well. He has a weakness to the ice weapon, which unfortunately fires along the ground, and Tangle Mountain floats in the air. So you have to try and get above him and drop the ice on top of him. Alternatively, you can wait until he's on the ground and freeze him there. However, he's also weak to the Mega Buster, so you can just kill him the old-fashioned way if you want. He's quite a fun boss, and I really like the design of Tangle Mountain as well. So all in all, he's a pretty decent boss. On top of all that, you have the stage music. The stage music in the Saturn is actually different to the PlayStation version. The music in the stage is really good, and it's something that you'll probably home like after you finish the level. And that's why Tangle Mountain stage is number 7 on my list. Coming at number 6, we have Wily Tower 3. The third Wily Tower stage is my favourite of the 4, as you've probably guessed from its position on the list. And it kicks off the level with some nice little platforming segments. It revolves mainly around the platforms with timers, some of which explode, some of which are exploding and walking, and it's really fun. I mean, it's not extremely difficult, but I always have a great time with it. It also has some cool enemies, the big dudes that throw stuff at you, and the level is broken up with a sub-boss where you fight Bass, or as he's known in the English version, Bass. The fight with Bass is quite a cool fight. It's not amazingly difficult. He has some interesting attacks that you can use to take him out, but it's still cool fighting him. I mean, Bass is quite an interesting character anyway, so this showdown with him is quite cool. My main gripe is that aside from the opening cutscene, there's not really much of a lead up to the fight. You have the opening cutscene where you have the fight with him, and then you don't really see him throughout the game until he appears again now. And even then you don't really beat him, you get him down to 1 HP and then he buggers off. But it's still a pretty cool fight. After that you have a little bit more platforming, which again is, it's pretty cool. and it leads to the final boss of this area. The final boss of the area is the Green Devil, which is a riff of the Yellow Devil from the first Mega Man game, but green. He's a really cool boss to fight. I haven't found the way to avoid all his attacks, but I still find him quite fun to beat. The good thing is as well, he's got such good animation, so when you're accessing his weak point by using the flash bombs and then hit him with a grapple beam, you can see the green jelly just merge inwards, revealing his eye, and it's really well done. The boss itself is a great design. It looks beautiful in 32-bit and it's animated really smoothly. It's just a great fight to finish the level on. The music for the stage as well is pretty cool, and I have a lot of fun with this level, so it has a very deserved spot at number 6 on my list. Number 5 may be seen as a controversial pick, but my number 5 is Clown Man Stage. Clown Man Stage normally gets a lot of flack, and I'm not entirely sure why. The start of the level is pretty poor, in all honesty. You drop down into a pit and you fight a bunch of worms, but the problem is that this area has a lot of cluttered toys, so you can't really see what's going on. And the first time you play the level, it's easy to take a lot of damage because you don't actually know what's an enemy and what's background. However, that's something that's rectified pretty soon after, because the rest of the level doesn't really have that problem. The rest of the level has a few different gimmicks, which are all quite interesting. There's a nice one with a train track, where you can ride the trains to the different parts of the level, or alternatively you can avoid the trains. There's another section that contains a lot of blocks with different symbols on them, and whenever the dude in the background hits this bell, then something different will happen depending on what block you are standing on. If you're on a circle block, you're safe. If you're on a cross, then something bad may happen to you. If you're on a skull, it'll fall through. And then later on, there's another gimmick where if you're on a question block, it will teleport you to a different question block. And it's a really neat little gimmick, which I actually enjoy quite a lot. After the first of these block sections, you face off against the mini-boss, which is basically a huge poker chip with a bear's face on it. It does various attacks, it bounces around, it vomits mini poker chip type things to try and attack you. It's not overly difficult, but it's a weird and kind of cool boss. There's also a platforming section to the stage, which involves moving platforms that go up and down, and these enemies that like to swing at you, and they're pretty entertaining to take out. It's something that I quite enjoy. The music throughout the stage as well is really jolly and just exactly what you'd expect from something like a Clown Man stage. And the boss itself is also quite cool. Being Clown Man, he does a lot of trapeze acts, so he swings around and tries to hit you. He has another attack where he reaches underground and tries to grab you in a different place. He can turn into a ball of electricity and flee himself about the place. And the strategy for taking out the boss is also extremely cool. Because you're using Tengu Man's weapon, you create a gust of wind that blows him off his trapeze. He then falls on the floor and you can damage him. Even when he's not on the trapeze, you can trap him within the gust of wind and create further damage. It's all quite satisfying to do, and that's why it's number 5 on my list. Coming in at number 4 is probably yet another controversial choice. We have Frostman Stage. Frostman Stage is the ice level of the game, which you can probably guess by the name of the Robot Master. And it features a mechanic that I like quite a lot, but not a lot of other people seem to, and that's a surfing mechanic. Again, part of this may be down to the English voice being terrible, and part of it may also be down to the other versions having input delay, but the Japanese version on the Sega Saturn is great. There's no input lag as far as I can tell, The jump slide thing in Japanese is very subtle and very quiet, so it doesn't get on your nerves. And the platforming when you're on the surfboard is intense and adrenaline packed, but it's not overly difficult. I never find it particularly hard. In fact, I very rarely die on this section. I think I died when I first tried it, and then ever since then I've never died on either of the two surfing sections. But even though it's not very difficult, it still grips you while you're on this surfboard flying through the stage. It's a lot of fun. And then at the end of the level you have like a big mound of snow that you start crashing through. It's a really good finish to these segments. Then in the middle you have a nice little platforming section. It's more or less a flat platforming level, but what makes it stand apart is that you have these big airships that drop huge blocks of ice with a penguin inside, and then there's a pushing machine that rams it towards you and it slides. Now, obviously it's an obstacle that you need to jump over, and then when it breaks, the penguin inside can actually hurt you too, but you also use it as a platforming mechanic as well. There's a bolt in particular on the level where you have to ride the ice cube to break open a barrier and get to the vault. It's really, really cool and really, really fun. I enjoy it quite a lot. And to top off the stage, you also have Frostman. Frostman is like this big, huge behemoth of a monster, and he just smashes his fists. As he enters the stage, it's actually got these ice sculptures of Mega Man. He comes down and smashes them all up. It's a great opening to a Robot Master, and aside from maybe Aquaman, it's probably my favourite opening for a Robot Master in the game. The fight itself isn't very difficult. He's weak to the bombs, which deal a lot of damage to him and stuns him quite a bit. And normally you'll find that all he'll really do during the fight is jump around because he's getting stun locked by these bombs so often. It does make the fight not as difficult or as fun as it could be, but I still love fighting him. The whole level is just great and a lot of fun. The music as well is perfect for an ice level. It truly does deserve the spot as number 4 on my list. Now we're on the real cream of the crop, the top 3. And at number 3 we have Surgeman Stage. Surgeman Stage is set in a jungle and has this really cool, mysterious music playing in the background as you go through the level. You have these lush forest backgrounds and these monkey type creatures that throw stuff at you, which you find in Wily Tower 3 and some other places too. The platform is really good fun to do, and some of the sections have grapple hook points, which I love. There are also these sections with vines, which you can destroy with your flame sword. It's really well animated, so you destroy these vines and they burst into flames and then slowly disintegrate. It's such a beautiful stage. To top it all off, in the middle of the level you have a fight with Woodman, who fits perfectly in the stage because it's Woodman in a jungle. He's just as much fun to fight as he was in Mega Man 2, apart from he's animated and looks a hell of a lot better. It's a great throwback, and because he's weak to the flame sword, he fits perfectly into the game. It doesn't feel like he's kind of shoehorned in, because he has a weakness that makes sense. Speaking of weaknesses to the flame sword, the end of the stage has Searchman, which is quite an interesting boss. You go into the boss stage and there's just a huge bush in the middle. You see the targeting reticule from the homing sniper, which centers on the bush, and the bush just bursts open with Searchman inside. He has a few different attacks using the homing missile, and he also has an attack where he basically hides in one of 3 bushes, which you can destroy with the flame sword to find where he is and deal damage to him. It's a lot of fun trying to find him, and this is definitely one of the highlights of the game. Coming in at number 2 we have Grenade Man Stage. Now, the big gimmick for Grenade Man stage is the exploding platforms. As I mentioned before, for Wily Tower 3, I really enjoy this platforming gimmick. So jumping between the exploding platforms is something that I find to be just a lot of fun. There are other sections in the level too, for example a bit where you have to blow up blocks to proceed. There's also a bit where you need to proceed across these metal platforms that have a fuse, and these little fire enemies set them on fire and explode. With some of them you just proceed as normally and jump across, but then some of them you have to wait for certain parts of the platform to blow up so you can then proceed. It's a really cool little section. In the middle of all the platforming sections you also have a mini boss, which is essentially this eye that has an orbit of junk around it. You use the Mega Ball to kick into him and it damages while he throws junk at you, he bounces around. He's actually quite a fun boss to fight. It's a nice little mini boss to break up the stage. The music for the stage as well is really good, and this is the first Robot Master stage I actually experienced in Mega Man 8. And as soon as the music kicked in I thought, yeah, I like this stage a lot. The boss, Grenade Man, is also a cool little boss. He flings little grenades at you which explode. He also fires the bomb towards you, which is quite neat. If you have the grapple beam, you can also deflect the grenades back, which I only found out in Wily Tower 4 during the rematch, but that's a cool little gimmick too. He's a really well designed Robot Master too. He's basically just a huge anthropomorphic grenade, and it's really funny to look at. He's just fantastic in design and I love him, and that's why Grenade Man stage is number 2. So that leads us to our final pick, which, if you know the game, you've probably already guessed what my number 1 pick is, but it's Swordman stage. Now, Swordman stage, there's so much I can say about this that I love. The music itself is perfect for a level that's based predominantly inside a temple, but the great thing about the level is just how many gimmicks it uses. Because Mega Man 8 splits the bosses up to a set of 4 and then a later set of 4, it means that for the second set it knows that you will definitely have these 4 weapons, and it allows for a degree of platforming design which normally is left until the final stages in Wily Tower. You enter the temple, you're in a room where you can choose which section of the temple you want to enter, and all 4 sections of the temple are compulsory because they lower a platform in the main room which allow you to proceed. One of the sections is designed around the electric claw and the grapple hook, which is my favourite weapon in the game, so obviously I love this section. The good thing as well is that you have to do these sections whilst there are spiked rollers coming towards you. It feels like something from an Indiana Jones film. It's really, really good. In another section, it's designed around the bombs which create a little bit of light. So in each room, you just fight normal enemies, but in the background there's a little picture. And at the end you have to press the buttons corresponding to the pictures based on the order that you saw them in order to access the exit. Another section is based on Tengu Man's weapon, which creates a gust of wind that pushes upwards. In this, the main gimmick involves joining 2 parts of a switch, where the bottom half is on a hovering platform. The first room is straightforward enough because you only have to shoot the lower half towards the switch. It connects and opens up to the next area, which gives you obviously what you need to do in the following stages, apart from the bottom half is lower down. So you have to line up and use the weapon to push it upwards. Again, such a great idea and so well done. Now the final area is also one of my favourite areas other than the grapple hook section, and it involves the ice weapon. Throughout the level there are these bursts of fire that go upwards and they are an instant kill. You have to use your frost weapon, which travels across the ground to temporarily freeze the pillars of fire so you can pass. It's a really cool and intense little section that's a lot of fun to do. After you've completed these 4 sections, you have to fight a mini-boss. And the mini-boss is like a cogwheel, I suppose, that moves up and down and fires things against you. And then you need to hit it. Eventually, the bottom half will crumble and a hammer will also try and smack you. It's a really cool little boss fight, and it's a little bit weird, but it's pretty decent. The second half of the level mainly revolves around riding a little platform across lava. Sometimes the platform will be moved by the lava, other times you'll need to press switches on the left or the right to make it move left or right. And there are certain bursts of lava that push you upwards to access the next area. It's a really cool little gimmick and it just looks fantastic. To finish off the level we have Swordman. Swordman again is a really cool design. It's basically a robot knight with a fire sword, and he has different attacks. He can fire the top half across in a kind of a spinning disc to try and cut you, which you slide underneath. He can summon this huge statue head to fall down on you. And, you know, he has other attacks too, but the boss is just so fun to take care of. He's weak to the water pistol that you get from Aquaman's stage, which takes care of him pretty quickly. However, the good thing is it doesn't really stun lock him. Sometimes it can stun lock him and he rubs the water out of his eyes, but a lot of the time it just deals more damage, so he doesn't feel like a cheap boss like some other ones, like for example Aquaman, where they get stunned and they can't actually attack you, making him quite a fulfilling boss to actually take care of. This stage is definitely deserving of my #1 pick. I love it from start to finish. So there we go, there are my top 7 lists and my top 14 stages for Mega Man 8. No doubt it is different from your list, but what are your lists? What are your favourite 5 levels or favourite 14 levels in Mega Man 8? Let me know, I am interested in seeing what you think. I hope you enjoyed my list and I hope to do more in future for some different games. Until next time, bye!